The hallway outside stage 12 smelled like dust, paint, and old coffee. Dean stood there with his script rolled tight in his hand like a lifeline. Around him, assistants rushed by with clipboards, cables dragged across the floor, and laughter echoed from a room he wasn't invited into. He was new, unknown, replaceable. Inside the studio, Howard Hawks was a legend. The man who made stars. The man who didn't waste time on maybes. Dean had rehearsed his lines all night, in his head, in the mirror, in the shower, on the bus ride to the lot. He wasn't asking for fame. He was asking for a chance. A door opened. Next. Dean stepped in. Hawks sat behind a wide desk, sunglasses still on indoors. No greeting, no smile. Just a long pause while he flipped through pages like Dean wasn't even there. Then Hawks looked up. "You?" he said. Dean straightened. "Yes, sir. You're just an extra. I make stars like Duke. You're not Duke." The words didn't shout. They didn't insult. They dismissed. Dean felt his throat tighten. Howard Hawks leaned back in his chair. "Why are you here?" Dean didn't answer with confidence. He answered with truth. "Because I won't quit." Silence. Hawks studied him like a gambler looking at a weak hand. "You're not special," Hawks said. "You don't look special. You don't sound special." Dean nodded. Not yet. As that was the first time Hawks looked interested, not impressed, not convinced, just curious. "Come back tomorrow," Hawks said. Same time, same place, new scene. Dean walked out of the office with shaking hands and burning eyes. Outside, the sun was too bright. Extras smoked. Leads laughed. Assistants yelled. Everyone looked like they belonged. Dean didn't. But for the first time, someone hadn't told him to leave forever. That night, he didn't sleep. He didn't rehearse like an actor. He studied like a fighter. He learned the scene until he could feel it instead of recite it. He didn't want to perform the words. He wanted to live them. The next day, he returned. Same hallway, same dust, same coffee smell. Different Dean. Hawks watched as Dean delivered the scene. Not perfect, not polished, but honest. Raw human. When he finished, Hawks said nothing. Dean waited. Finally, Hawks stood up. "You're not a star," he said. Dean nodded. "But you're dangerous." That word hit harder than praise. "Dangerous to who?" Dean asked. "To my belief that you're nothing." Hawks walked past him. "You're still an extra," he said. "But you're not invisible anymore. And in Hollywood." That was everything. Dean didn't walk into the studio the next morning with confidence. He walked in with focus. The hallway felt the same. The noise, the movement, the pressure in the air. But inside him, something had shifted. He wasn't there to be seen anymore. He was there to work. Howard Hawks didn't greet him. He never did. He just tossed a thin script across the table. "This role's dead," Hawks said. "Nobody wants it." Dean picked it up. It was small. 3 scenes. No big speeches. No heroic moments. It's just a quiet character in the background of a bigger story. "Why give it to me?" Dean asked. Hawks didn't look up. "Because if you can't make this matter, you don't belong here." That was the test. On set, Dean felt the weight of every eye that didn't care. Other actors rehearsed their lines loudly. Crew members walked past him like he was part of the furniture. No one introduced themselves. He was just the guy in the corner. But Dean treated the role like it was the lead. He learned not just his lines, but everyone else's. He watched how the camera moved. He studied how pauses worked. He noticed when silence said more than words. He showed up early. He stayed late. He didn't complain. He didn't beg. He built the character quietly. During the first rehearsal, Dean delivered his scene without trying to impress anyone. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't push emotion. He simply told the truth. The room went still. Not dramatic still. working still. Howard Hawks didn't say anything. But he didn't cut the scene early either. Later that day, Hawks walked over. "You're not acting," he said. "I'm listening," Dean replied. That answer changed something. The next scene, Hawks added 2 new lines. Then for more the next day. Then a close-up. The role started to grow. So did the tension. Some of the other actors noticed. They didn't like it. "He's taking space," one of them said behind his back. "He's not supposed to matter," another whispered. Dean heard it all. He ignored it all. He remembered the hallway, the dust, the coffee smell, the words, "You're just an extra." And every night, he went home and worked harder. One afternoon, during a long shoot, a lead actor forgot his lines. The scene stalled. Hawks waited. The crew waited. The silence stretched. Dean spoke up. He gave the cue line perfectly. Not loudly, not proudly, just correctly. The lead recovered. The scene continued. Hawks watched Dean the entire time. After the take, Hawks walked over slowly. "You saved my day," he said. Dean didn't smile. He didn't nod. He just said, "That's the job." That night, Hawks rewrote the ending of the film. The quiet character in the background now had the final moment. Not a speech, not applause. Just a look into the camera. A human look. The kind that stays with people. Dean didn't celebrate. He just kept working. 'Cause deep down, he knew something. You don't become a star when people notice you. You become a star when you stop needing them to. Success never announces itself. It creeps in quietly and then makes enemies just as quietly. By the time filming reached the halfway mark, Dean was no longer invisible. Crew members nodded when he passed. The camera department adjusted lights for him. The script supervisor started asking for his input on timing. And that changed everything. Not everyone liked it. At first, the tension felt small. A pause before someone answered him. A delayed call time. A joke that landed just a little too sharp. Dean didn't respond. He kept his head down and did his job, but the pressure kept building. One morning, Dean walked onto set and found his chair missing. Everyone else had one. His spot was empty. He stood. He didn't complain. He waited for the director's call. Howard Hawks noticed. "Why aren't you sitting?" Hawks asked. Dean looked at the empty space. "Didn't see a chair for me." Hawks stared at the assistant who was supposed to handle seating. "Fix it." The chair appeared in seconds. From that day on, the air around Dean felt colder. People whispered when he walked past. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Smiles vanished. Dean felt it. But he didn't let it touch his work. He showed up early. He stayed late. He kept learning. Then came the scene that changed the tone of the entire set. It was emotional, quiet, no music. Just 2 people talking about loss. Dean was supposed to listen. The lead actor spoke. The words were good. The timing was fine. But something was missing. Dean didn't try to steal the scene. He didn't interrupt. He simply listened with his whole face. When the lead finished, the silence lasted longer than written. Howard Hawks didn't call cut. The camera stayed rolling. Dean's eyes filled slowly. Not with tears for the scene. With truth, the moment felt real. After the take, no one spoke. Then Hawks said, "That's the movie." From that day forward, the whispers turned into resentment. A few actors started arriving late when Dean had scenes. A lighting cue was missed during one of his close-ups. A prop went missing before an important take. None of it was obvious. Okay, but all of it was intentional. Dean noticed. He didn't accuse anyone. Okay, he checked. He checked his own props. He confirmed his marks. He ran his own lines. One evening, after a long day, Dean overheard someone say, "He thinks he's the star now." Dean didn't respond. But that night, he stood alone in the hallway outside stage 12. The same hallway from his first audition. Same dust, same smell of coffee. He leaned against the wall and finally allowed himself to feel it. The isolation, the pressure, the weight of becoming something people didn't expect. Then he straightened up and went back inside. The next morning, Hawks pulled him aside. "They're testing you," Hawks said. "I know," Dean replied. "You're still standing," Hawks said. "That's the plan," Dean answered. Hawks nodded once. It's not approval, recognition. And in that moment, Dean understood something that changed him forever. When people turn against you, it's usually because you're moving forward. The last week of filming arrived without celebration. No speeches, no parties, just long days and tired faces. Dean felt different walking onto the set now. Not confident, not proud, focused. He knew the movie would outlive every argument, every rumor, every quiet act of resistance. All that would remain was what ended up on screen, and he had given everything to it. The final scene was simple. Dean's character stood alone, watching someone else walk away. No words, no music, just a man facing what he could not fix. Howard Hawks gathered the crew. "This is the ending," he said. "If this doesn't work, nothing does." They rolled camera. The other actor walked out of frame. Dean stayed. He didn't think about technique. He didn't think about lines. He thought about every time he'd been told he didn't matter. The hallway, the dust, the coffee smell. The words, "You're just an extra." And he let it all sit behind his eyes. The camera moved closer. Dean didn't cry. He didn't smile. He simply stood there, breathing, existing, accepting. Howard Hawks let the silence stretch. Then he called cut. No one clapped. No one spoke. Hawks walked over slowly. "That's it," he said. Filming ended 2 days later. The studio didn't throw a wrap party for Dean. They rarely did for anyone who wasn't already famous. Dean packed his things quietly and walked out of the lot with his jacket over his arm. He didn't know if the movie would succeed. He only knew he had told the truth. Months later, the premiere came. Dean sat in the back of the theater. He didn't bring anyone. He didn't want distractions. The lights went down. The movie played. People laughed in places he didn't expect. They went quiet where he hoped they would. And during the final scene, the room stopped breathing. When the credits rolled, no one rushed for the exits. They sat, thinking. Outside the theater, someone finally said his name. Then another. Then another. Reporters stepped forward. "What did you feel during that last scene?" one asked. Dean answered honestly. "I remembered what it feels like to be overlooked." The next morning, the papers didn't talk about the budget. They talked about the performance no one saw coming. Howard Hawks called him into his office again. Same desk, same sunglasses, different tone. "You're not an extra anymore," Hawks said. Dean didn't smile. "I never was," he replied. Hawks studied him, then nodded. The studio offered Dean bigger roles, better billing, more money. But the real change wasn't on paper. It was inside him. He no longer waited to be chosen. He chose himself. And that was the movie that changed everything.